welcome Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Howard. And if you're a return listener, thank you for coming back. And if you're a new listener, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Today's going to be a different episode. I'm not going to have a truck stop on this episode. I'm going to see how this goes. I know I asked this question in the past and somebody said keep it on, but with this episode, I'm going to leave the truck stop out. Normally, I would talk about the truck stop, the amenities around it, reviews, and what people think about it, and a murder that happened not too far from there. But where I'm at right now, I failed to put down the information about the truck stop I was originally going to talk about. I have no signal, and I know I could probably record it and go back later and edit in the truck stop. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and record. There's no signal here, so I'm going to record it, and then I'll download it to my hosting site later on. I guess because I'm lazy, I don't know to edit it in. But that truck stop's not going nowhere, and where this is at is Gary, Indiana, so I'm bound to find another case so I can talk about that. But this one is going to be only about the case. And before we start, please, I have not been able, I had a few people do it so far, rate and review on Apple iTunes or go on my YouTube channel, subscribe. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers so I can go live. I have my TikTok channel, cemeteries and scenes and cemeteries. I can't remember, sceneries and cemeteries, I believe it is. I'm not looking at it right now, but yeah, if you want to see short videos of where I'm at or cemeteries I go to, go check that out. Subscribe, but mainly tell people about it. I do have a Patreon and that I'm trying to build up. If you want to shout out on the show, a big thank you from me, you could do that at Patreon/Truck Stop Murder. Have not gotten none yet, so I'm really excited about those shout outs. Or if you don't want to make, and that's as low as $1 a month. And if anybody's tried to do that and there's been some problems and issues that I need to correct with that, please let me know as well so I can address that issue. Or if you just want to do a one-time pay, you could do PayPal at truckstopmurder@gmail.com or gary.howard5@yahoo.com. Either one will work, and I will receive the funds, and I will with a big shout out on my show to show you my appreciation. Well, like I said, right now I'm in Tennessee, and for some reason I can't think of the city's name. So let's find out. One sec, let's pause. I'm in Waverly, Tennessee, not too far from McKenzie, Tennessee, where my good friend Robert Schwarzenegger, I think his name is. So Bob, Robert, whatever. He used to be a police officer in the town I grew up. Gave me so much grief growing. But you know what? That was growing up, and I was doing some against the law things, I guess you could say. Even though I thought it was good times, but past is past, future is future. And he was doing his job, and I was being a kid, teenager, partying. But yeah, he's not too far from there, about 30. But yeah, I'm in Tennessee right now, Waverly, Tennessee, at Hood Container, where I'm should been picking up a load of paper to go to Chicago. Then from Chicago, I'm going to Sealy, Texas, and from there, Christmas time. Heading home for Christmas. I've been on the road since October, so I am ready to go home. Long needed home time. Hopefully everybody else's Christmas is doing wonderful. Hopefully looking forward to 2022. I'm not going to say nothing about that. I saw a post about somebody saying after 2020, everybody was saying let's hope for the best for 21 and 21, and it turned to shit. So nobody's saying that's just being quiet about 2022. But yeah, anyhow, without further ado, the case that I am covering today is out of Gary, Indiana, and it covers, there's a few women that was involved. There were girls at the time, but the person I'm going to be covering is Paula R. Cooper. It's an interesting case that I found about teenagers, and I've said this in the past. A lot of people look at teenagers and their actions about how horrible they are. They should be, the highest punishment available. But keep in mind that a lot of the frontal cortex, front part of your brain, I know I'm saying that wrong, of your brain is what determines consequences and makes you decision making of your mind, and that is not really formed frontal lobe cortex. I don't know, but that is not developed till each at least 25 years old. So, and I remember as a teenager, and I suppose anybody else might have done this as well, when you're a teenager all the way up to mid 20s, thinking you want to do something, and not thinking the consequences, the long term effects, or nothing like that. But that's where this part of the brain controls, and that's why a lot of kids act on impulses. And I think, I'm not saying because of this, if something horrible they do, they should not, pay the consequences. Something should be done, but instead of punishment, there should be some way to correct this, maybe help them out until then. But each case, it's all circumstantial. Each case is different. Each case should be, dictated in a different manner. But the case that I'm talking about right now is from, like I said, Paula Cooper. So let's talk about what she did. No truck stop today. It was going to be the TA right there, and I'm not going to wing it because there's a restaurant right next to it that I love to go to, and I want to almost give a unpaid sponsorship for that. And I can't wait because I go there and get the gyro plate all the time, and it's amazing. $11, two people can eat it. All you gotta do is we'll actually get the extra pita for a few dollars, and two people could get filled, guaranteed. Unless you're just some fat obese person or you eat a lot. Either way, well, let's talk about what happened on this date of May 14th, 1985. So, yes, on this date, May 1985, Paula, Karen, April, and Denise, four teenagers in Indiana, ninth grade students from Lee Wallace High School, and their complete names are Paula R. Cooper, which was 15 at the time, which is the girl we'll be talking about. Denise Thomas was age 14. Karen Corder, Corder, age 16, and April Beverly, age 15. So that's why I was telling you, they're all teenagers. They're all child, so they're still young. So they're at the Lee High Wallace in Gary, Indiana. They left the school grounds at lunch. This is when you could leave. I don't know how it is now, but I know my kids, they once they go to lunch school, they stay at school. They can't go home for lunch. When I was in school, I was able to, if I want to go home, like eat lunch there or go home for lunch. But yeah, they plan on ditching the rest of the day. Left for lunch. They plan on ditching the rest of the day. They went to April's house where they drank some beer, wine, smoked some weed, as young kids do. They began to talk about what they wanted to do for the rest of the day. They decided they would like to go to a local arcade a few blocks away. That's when arcades existed, and play some video games. They had one problem. They didn't have any money. After discussing ways to come up with some money, April told the other girls, there's the old lady who lives across the alley, and where she did, she teaches Bible lessons to neighborhood kids. She lives alone, and I think she has some money. And by the way, at this time, this neighborhood was, well, that's not is irrelevant. Let's go on with the story. April said, if you three girls go into the house and knock on her door, so April knew this woman, so she's been there before. That's what she's saying. The three girls, if they knocked on the door, if the three girls would go to the house and knock on her door, and tell her that they would like to have Bible lessons, I think she will let you in her house, she stated. If she lets you in the house, you could rob her. I'll stay out as a lookout because she would recognize her because she's been there for Bible lessons in the past. It don't really say how she knows. The woman's name is Ruth Pelke, by the way. It's not stated how she knows, or maybe it was Bible lessons. Maybe she saw her in school. So the girls agreed. They said, let's go do this. They agreed on the plan, with April staying in the background, backyard. The other girls went to Ruth Pelke's front door and knocked. When Ruth answered the front door, one of the girls said, Mrs. Pelke, we'd like to take some Bible lessons. And of course, this thrilled her. Now, at the time, I heard certain stories where she wasn't giving Bible lessons at the time, and she was going to get information for them to go, but I also heard that she was getting ready to give them Bible lessons. So she said, sure, come on in. So that is when Ruth, well, she was very, let's talk a little bit about Ruth. This is the way Ruth was. She loved to give Bible lessons to all the kids. She was really involved in church and really involved in the youth a lot. She was a very religious woman and was actively involved in various services at the local Baptist church. Which when I read this, I didn't look into it, and there's the world's biggest Bible Sunday school there, and I used to go there as a kid all the time. And you want to talk about some hard folk Bible Baptist, people. They will go travel all over Chicago. But yeah, First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana, which is not too far from Gary, or this could have been. But yeah, on Sunday morning, she attended Sunday school and then stayed for worship services. On Sunday evening, she would attend the Bible training hour and stay over for the evening services. On Wednesday, she attended prayer meetings and stayed over for choir practice. She was a leader in the Boys and Girls Club at the church and involved in the visitation and women's ministry program. So she was there all the time. If that door was open at the church, she was there. She was also very active in several programs outside the church called Child Evangelism and 5-day clubs. As these events, she told flannel graph Bible stories, which I had to look that up. I remember about it too when I was going to school, Sunday school as a young kid. Which the advent of the video. So since the video, of course, they don't do that anymore. Everything's done video. But if you don't know what it is, I had to look it up because I couldn't. I was like, flannel graph Bible stories. What is that? But yeah, it's a big board set up on an easel. It's about 2 foot high and about 3 foot wide and covered with felt material like, Velcro tape. She had cut out pictures of Bible characters with a flannel material posted on the back. So it's like little shapes. So she'll like that was the stage, but she was using characters as she told the story. The pictures would stick on the board as she told the Bible stories. Like I said, almost like Velcro. She told stories about this is what her grandson was said. Later on would say, well, this is what she would do. She would tell stories of Daniel in the lion's den, David and Goliath, Jonah and the whale, 3 men in the fury furnace, and many others. The children's favorite story was about Joseph and his coat of many colors. Joseph had received this beautiful colored coat as a sign of love from his father. She would put the colorful coat on the pictures of Joseph. So she on those pictures of the men, but she'll put the coat on him. So they're constantly changing different outfits. Her brothers were pictured off to the side in their long plain brown robes, so you figured they would be pretty jealous about him. So she would tell how the brothers were so jealous and angry that they sold him to slave traders who came one day while they were working in the field. They always like when Nana put the coat on Joseph, so that was really exciting. If you want to know more about it, go ahead. I don't want to turn this into a Bible story, if you're into Christianity beliefs, go to Old Testament and look about the story about Joseph. It is a very fascinating story about forgiveness, and it's an interesting story. Even if you're not you have a Christian belief, it is a fascinating story, mainly on just the basis of forgiveness. So when her children had their own children, they would watch her teach their children, and of course, with her kids as well. So it was like a generational thing, and they were really excited about telling about the stories. So this is what she loved to do. So when the girls they called her Nana, by the way, told Ruth they wanted to take Bible lessons. I have it on my notes, that's why I said it. I forgot to change that up. But yeah, everybody called her Nana that associated with her. They told her that she wanted Bible lessons. It was more of a chance for her of 87, 78, to share her faith with young kids. She told them, come on in. So when Ruth turned around her back to her desk in the dining room to get some information about classes, Denise grabbed a vase off one of the tables and hit Ruth over the head. As she fell to the floor, Paula pulled a knife out of her purse and began to stab her. While she was stabbing Ruth, Denise, Karen started looking through the house trying to find some money. They had trouble finding any, so they came back to where Ruth was still being stabbed. Paula told that they were having trouble with it. They told Paula they were having no luck trying to find money. So Paula was mad that they couldn't find none, and Money told Denise to take the knife. Of course, Denise refused. She probably wasn't even realizing what was going to happen. They thought they were just going to steal the money, and that's it. But Karen had no problem doing it. So Karen took the knife and started twisting in her in a torture fashion, telling Ruth where's the money at. So Paula kept ransacking the house. They end up with when it's all said and done with, they destroyed the house, tortured poor Ruth for a while trying to find money. They came up with a total of $10. Even in That's not much money. Even 1984, $10, no. And they took the keys to Ruth's old car. And then they left. That's where they left her to die on the dining room floor. They took her car, drove back to high school, where they were at a few hours earlier, to see if their friends wanted to go for joyriding, not even thinking that they're driving a car. This is what I'm talking about, the whole frontal lobe part of your brain, where you don't really think of long term consequences. You only think of the moment. And if I'm wrong about this, please somebody message me. But a lot of the researches of some of the cases I've done really reflect highly on that the brain is not developed to 25. So they're not even thinking about what they're doing. They're just trying to have a good time. So the next day, Ruth's son, I don't have his name, which is irrelevant, but just fine. I don't want nobody, harassing this man for information about this where they might want to know. Look it up if you need more information. You can imagine the pain that was going through his mind when he felt it all. So the following day, it wasn't no no mystery who did their drive around her car. So the girls were arrested the following day of discovering Ruth's body. Bill Pelke committed. This is her grandson. I had great difficulty believing the four girls were so young could have gotten involved in such a terrible, heinous crime. I have children that were the same age, and I can't imagine. Well, that's where you stop to have these girls same age. But even myself, I couldn't imagine my kids doing that at the age around 15, 14, 16. Well, because they were juveniles at the time, I really couldn't find much on them. I looked them up. I did find a few things, but like I said, the main girl we're going to be talking about is Paula R. Cooper. She's the girl of the story. But let's talk about some of the other ones. A lot of them end up getting. So the first girl, Karen Corbin, who was 16 at the time of the crime, pled guilty to twisting and turning a knife in her body for about 15, 20 minutes while the other two girls, was looking for money. The judge had the choice of either sentence Karen to death or to Indiana's alternative at the time, which was 60 years in prison. She elected not to go for the death sentence and gave her the 60 years. The judge stated the reason he was not giving her the death sentence was because she was under influence of a dominating personnel, which was Paula Cooper. And I did find her later on. What happened to her? She ended up dying in prison in May 26th of 2005 following a parent's suicide. That's what it said, parent suicide. According to police, Cooper, of course, you know the story about that, but yeah, she ended up passing away 2015. It just is a parent suicide, but that don't necessarily mean it was suicide. April Beverly, the girl who had known Ruth, had said she was sentenced for. Well, I'm having a hard time reading. But anyhow, she was sentenced to 25 years of prison, even though she was not in the house so she should stay. And Denise, the other girl, the girl that was accused of hitting Nana over the head, I say Nana, was 35 years. So yeah, they all got some time. But as for Paula Cooper, since they figured that she was the main culprit who really did the majority of the, they went ahead and gave her the prosecution sought out the death sentence, and after, because of the brutality of it and everything, they decided yes, even though her age of the attack was at 15 years old, they had no problem with the death sentence because of the brutality of the attack. So yeah, they came back with a plea of sentence of guilty and youngest girl on death row in Indiana. So Cooper was sent to death row at Indiana's Women's Prison in Indianapolis. Her case was taken up by attorney Monica Foster, who organized a campaign which had strong public support. Of course, this was all over the news. I don't know if anybody have heard of this. I think I've heard this on one of the shows. I think it was on Deadly Women. I'm not for sure if it was on that show, but it was on some TV show. I think there have been other stories similar to this. And I'm not for sure if this is it or not, but yeah, there was a big campaign signed by 2 million people, mainly because of her age, and because the brutality. If it was an older person, I think this would not have, they would not have signed it. But because of her age, they're trying to get the death sentence commuted to life in prison, maybe with parole or everything. But they just wanted to take the death penalty off the table. Even Pope John Paul II made a personal appeal to Indiana Governor Robert Orr at the time in September 1987 for a separate appeal to the United States, received and by the way, another one received 1 million. So that's a total of 3 million people signed to get this Cooper's case overturned. Case was profiled on 60 Minutes and various European television programs. She was front page news in her hometown of Gary, Indiana, including a scandal where it was found that several prisoner guards who had sex with her while she was in the cell. I don't know, but the pregnancy tests were performed. They all came back negative, and there was I don't think they ever tested to see if she was, but I don't think it was rape, maybe consensual. I don't know, but it was the thing. But yeah, Judge. So they're going through their appeals and everything. But Judge Kimbrough had died, and later appeal process was slow. But they had to get a different judge. Replacement was chosen. So in 1987, the Indiana legislation passed. By the way, at this time, death row you couldn't be was 10 years old. So that was the legal age that you could be tried as an adult and given the death sentence was at the age of 10. Crazy, ain't it? But the Indiana legislation passed a bill raising the minimum age from a defendant in a death penalty case from 10 years old to 16. So you would think, well, Cooper's not going to be on it. Nope. Guess what? Although the change was a reaction to Cooper's case, the legislation, why can't I say that? The state made it clear they did not change it to affect Cooper's case. You, ma'am, be gone with you back to death row because you are not getting out. Everybody from this point on will get out, but not you. So in 1988, Supreme Court decision Thompson versus Oklahoma barred the death penalty for dependent defendants under the age of 16 at the time of the crime, even though Cooper was. But the Indiana Supreme Court considered both of these developments. This is why. On July 3rd, 1989, the court heard arguments and reduced and this is what happened. Reduced the sentence to life in prison. A New York Times editorial that month called the court's decision brave and said the death sentence for a 15-year-old was medieval. And so it took a while, a lot, hearing, but at first they were not going to get rid of death penalty for this woman. They're like, we're going to use you as example, and sorry, we're going to use you as example, and you will be the last one executed. But none like that. But after, like I said, in a 5-1 decision, the Indiana justice acknowledged the particularly brutal nature of the slaying. Cooper was admitted she stabbed Ruth Pelke, a 78-year-old Bible teacher, 33 times with a butcher knife on May in 1985. According to testimony at Cooper's trial, the wounds were so deep that the knife shredded the carpet underneath Ruth's body and dented the floorboards underneath. Of course, the court overturned the execution, signed both the Indiana and U.S. Constitution in order. Instead, the Cooper received a prison sentence of 60 years, the maximum under. That's all they give her, 60 years. So she's off death row. All the appeals, everything kind of helped. Well, it didn't kind of help. It did help, and maybe the Pope did too. That meant Cooper could be freed 26 years. According to accounts, she was already served. She had already served since her arrest and possibly good behavior credit, so she could get out. So in saving Cooper from, that was the. Let me slow down. In saving Cooper from the electric chair, the court extended in 1987 any law that raised the minimum age of death penalty from up to 16. So yeah, she was no longer. So the court said creation of the age standard means Paula would be both first and last woman. This is what I was saying when it first happened. They said Paula would be both the first and last person ever to be executed in Indiana for a crime committed at the age of 15. So just makes sense. But yeah, she is no longer on death row, and she got 60 years in prison. So while she was on there, she did a lot for herself. She got her GED. She earned college correspondence courses while in prison because she could get parole. And in 2000, by the way, I didn't mention this. Well, one of the main reasons why they kind of considered it because Bill Pelke, that's the grandson. Now Ruth's son never forgave her at all. He always wanted a death penalty, and that's where he stood by. But now Bill Pelke, he said he had a revolution, you could say, one day. And, when he was in court, he remembered seeing Paula's grandfather after they gave the death sentence, having to be escorted out of court because he was crying so loud and he was saying they're killing my baby. So while Bill Pelke was in there, he was at work one day. He worked as a crane operator in Gary. He said he had a revelation and he could picture Nana. He said, and he could imagine how would she want somebody else's, even though her life was taken, would she want somebody else's? So he became really good friends with her, did a lot of correspondence and everything, and he forgave her, and she apologized, sincere apology. So I think that had a lot to do with her getting off death row. So here she is, got her GED, doing everything good. So as 2007, she was projected to be released in 2014. Although she was sentenced to 60 years, Indiana removes a day from a prisoner sentence each day she has good behavior. So let's see. Did she get paroled? She did. So the date is she was released on June 17th, 2013. It shows you, and the things that I saw on her, she was actually doing pretty good. And she got a job, really working with her GED and everything. She got a job and worked her way up to manager, got a boyfriend, and started a new life, and everything was working pretty good for her. The state for she did her pro, she did her sentence, she forgave her, all that. Her Ruth, probably a lot of people think that Ruth, even though beyond a grave, forgave her because the Christian woman she was, and Bill, her grandson, forgave her. Everybody forgave her, but the problem was there is one person who did not forgive her, and was living unbeknownst to a lot of people with a bunch of demons in her, and that was Paula herself. After she got out of jail, I don't know. I've read some places where she was institutionalized because she spent like 20 something, 28 years in prison. Let me see. She got out in 2013. This happened. So she was 85, 95, almost 20 years in jail. She was released. So yeah, the murder happened on May 14th, 1985. She was released June 17th, 2013. So I've read some places where she was institutionalized, couldn't get out, but according to her letters, she stopped at a friend's house. She was having a hard time, so she ended up staying the night at one of her friend's house. She said she couldn't be alone. She was having there's demons inside her that she needed help with. So the next morning they woke up and Paula was gone. She wasn't there, but there was letters. I don't know what these letters was never submitted, put out in the public. Asking for forgiveness and whatnot. She gave stopped at some other people's house, gave some letters, and then she went to a park where her boyfriend had planted some flowers that she really loved. So this was like 2 years after she was released on May 22nd, 2015. Her body was found by the park with a suicide wound, having shot herself in the head. So yeah, she just could not live with herself. Well, a lot of people think, and what I believe too, with what I research and everything like that, I think that comes maturity, comes realization what she did, and I don't think she could really live with herself because that woman was trying to help her out. Like I said, this goes back to the frontal lobe that I was talking. Now, by the way, I talk a lot about this. I am no professional. I'm no doctor. I'm no scientist. I'm not. I'm just old army vet, truck driving podcast who does research for these cases, and I learn a lot while I do my research, which makes this interesting because I love learning new things, and I never knew anything about the frontal lobe until I started doing this. I thought if you're a kid, you should be held accountable for your own actions, but if your actions is actions that you really cannot comprehend that you're doing, a lot of people are like, oh, that's full of shit. You should know, because if your brain, that's like blaming a car, be mad at a car that's not running without an engine or gas. Yeah, it's there, the car's there, but without, I know that's a bad comparison, but you understand what I'm saying. It's not working, until 25. So, but yeah, she couldn't handle it. And I think once that really developed, she came to realization of what she did, how many lives, and she ruined it. She just couldn't do it, and sadly, she took her life. But there you go. There's the case of Paula R. Cooper. I had that for a while set up, but my truck had broke down a few times. truck broke down. Truck broke down a few times, and I've been going through a bunch of emotional issues myself too. I'm not going to get into. My friend, well, I think he's my friend Jimmy Wisman. Me and him talked about it. I think he kind of helped me out through this in a way, unbeknownst to him. But anyhow, if you like to tell that story, please tell me about it. Join my Facebook group, Truck Stop Murder True Crime Podcast. Let me know. It's actually kind of growing bigger than I thought. Now, I wish that some of these people, I'm happy they're on the group, but rate and review. Let's build this up. You know, build this up through iTunes, rate and reviews, maybe get some sponsorships. And like I said, if you want to support me through Patreon, you can at Patreon/truck.stop-murder, or you can PayPal me. Help me get some better equipment. Right now, I'm desperate need a new mic stand, mixer board. I do need some equipment, but I'm kind of tight for funds, especially with Christmas coming up. And I'm surprised my wife isn't even gonna let me do this. Everything's going out, nothing coming in. But I enjoyed this. This is more of a hobby that I do. But yeah, if anything, just tell a friend. Go on your social media page, share Truck Stop Murder True Crime Podcast. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on Audible. You can find me there. Just Google me, you will find me. But yep, that's the story of Paula R. Cooper. And I will be doing hopefully an episode here pretty soon. We'll try. I do try to stay on a regular. I think that's my main problem. I don't stay on a regular schedule, which I'm going to try to be better at that. Well, okay, there you go. Hopefully everybody has a Merry Christmas. Don't eat too much, and hopefully the Bears do a little bit better. Yes, I'm a Bears fan. And as I always say, you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with a 2x4. I'm out of here.